This module will provide an overview of how diseases are spread by airborne transmission between animals and humans. This presentation is part of a series of zoonotic disease presentations developed by the Virginia Department of Health in cooperation with many agencies and institutions. Animals are very important to our lives, and in many cases, livelihoods. It is hoped that these presentations will help the student understand that while disease transmission between animals and people can occur, in most cases, basic infection control methods can be used to prevent disease spread. After reviewing this presentation, the student will be able to 1. Describe respiratory disease transmission. 2. Provide several examples of zoonotic respiratory pathogens for both livestock and poultry. And 3. Explain how to prevent infection with zoonotic respiratory pathogens. For this and the other presentations associated with airborne transmission, it is important to have an understanding of certain terminology. A zoonotic disease is one in which both humans and animals can acquire, whether it's by airborne transmission or another mode of transmission. Humans and animals acquire disease from one another through the spread of pathogens, which are disease elements such as bacteria or viruses. When these disease pathogens are aerosolized, meaning the pathogens are converted into a fine spray or suspension in the air, they travel through the air and are then inhaled by a host, resulting in airborne disease transmission. Once an animal or human is infected with the disease, they can infect other individuals when they are shedding the disease pathogens. Shedding is the active process of discharging disease pathogens, which can then become aerosolized and inhaled by other individuals, continuing the cycle of airborne disease spread. After disease transmission occurs, the individual that is now infected may not always show signs or symptoms immediately. This period is referred to as the incubation period, which is the development of an infection without outward signs of disease. So, just because you or your animal feel and appear healthy doesn't mean disease transmission hasn't already occurred. Once an individual is infected with a disease, the immune system will work to mount a response in order to fight off the infection. The immune system's response begins when antigens are recognized by the body. Antigens are substances that are foreign to the body, such as bacteria or viruses, among others. Once a disease antigen is recognized, it becomes bound to antibodies, which are protein products of the immune system that bind antigens in an effort to remove them from the body. Particularly, when thinking of viruses, it's important to keep in mind the idea of reassortment. Reassortment is the process of rearranging genetic material between viruses so that it gives rise to different genes. With influenza, reassortment can result in numerous combinations of the virus. When disease keeps spreading, it can result in something known as a disease outbreak. Disease outbreaks can be classified as an epidemic, which is an outbreak affecting numerous people within a population, community, or region, or as a pandemic, which is an outbreak affecting numerous people over a wide geographic area. A disease reservoir is the living or non-living material in or on which an infectious agent multiplies and or develops and is dependent on for its survival. A disease reservoir can be a significant source of infection. Along with getting diseases from the disease reservoir, it is also possible to contract disease from fomites. A fomite is an object that carries disease from an animal to a person. Things such as contaminated brushes, needles, clothing, and bedding are all considered fomites. Excreta is waste matter that is eliminated or separated from the body, such as feces or urine, and is a common source of infection. Biosecurity refers to preventive measures implemented to protect yourself, other people, and animals from exposure to pathogens. The use of personal protective equipment, commonly referred to as PPE, is an essential component to preventing spread of disease. PPE is equipment worn to minimize exposure to a variety of hazards. Gloves, foot and eye protection, earplugs, hard hats, respirators, and full body suits are all examples of PPE. Listed on this slide are several zoonotic diseases that can be aerosolized. In livestock, important diseases include tuberculosis, Q fever, brucellosis, and swine influenza. There are federal eradication programs in place to reduce the incidence of tuberculosis and brucellosis. And as a result of these programs, most states are tuberculosis and brucellosis free. In poultry, avian influenza, psittacosis, and histoplasmosis are all capable of being aerosolized. The distance that aerosolized particles can travel and remain infective varies from disease to disease. Although specific distances for all diseases are not known, it is generally accepted that some pathogens require close proximity for transmission, while other pathogens, such as tuberculosis and Q fever, can be transmitted over long distances. The majority of zoonotic animal diseases that cause respiratory disease in humans are transmitted when aerosolized pathogens travel through the air and are inhaled by a person. As stated previously, this form of disease transmission is called airborne transmission. Pathogens can become aerosolized in a variety of ways and from different tissues, including but not limited to a sick animal coughing, sneezing, or vocalizing, medical procedures such as lancing an abscess, dentistry, or aiding in the birthing process, or husbandry procedures such as sweeping, vacuuming, or high-pressure spraying, which can aerosolize pathogens and excreta. Clinical signs in animals vary depending on the pathogen. Some diseases, such as tuberculosis in cattle or avian influenza in poultry, cause animals to cough or sneeze, while other diseases, such as brucellosis or Q fever, cause abortions. It is also possible that an infected animal shows no signs of disease, which we call asymptomatic, or their clinical signs are nonspecific and do not pinpoint an exact disease process. The picture on the top right shows an emaciated cow that is ill with tuberculosis. The bottom picture is of a chicken displaying clinical signs of avian influenza. The inside of the eyelid, called the conjunctiva, is congested and has areas of hemorrhage, which gives the conjunctiva a red appearance instead of light pink. Even though animals may not show respiratory signs from the pathogens mentioned in this presentation, humans usually develop respiratory symptoms when these zoonotic pathogens are aerosolized and inhaled. Aerosolized pathogens gain entry into the nose, sinuses, or even further down into the lungs. Humans usually experience symptoms similar to the common cold, such as coughing, with or without blood, and a runny nose, or more flu-like signs, such as fever and fatigue. One of the most important measures that can be taken to prevent disease transmission is to maintain good hand hygiene. This means washing hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds after having contact with animals. In addition to washing your hands, depending on the disease and situation, personal protective equipment should be worn. This can include gloves, facial protection such as goggles, protective outerwear, and, especially if there is concern about pathogens that can affect people via aerosol, respirators. An N95 respirator is a readily available type of respirator that is designed to filter at least 95% of airborne particles. Talk to your doctor first about whether it's safe for you to wear a respirator. To decrease spread of disease from farm to farm, it is important to practice good biosecurity. After working with animals in one location, equipment, including boots and surfaces, must be cleaned and disinfected prior to leaving. This will help to decrease disease contamination with fomites. It is also important to purchase healthy animals and to isolate new animals or animals that appear to be sick. And finally, before cleaning or disturbing dried excrement or dust, water should be used to dampen the area. Dried excrement and dust are easily aerosolized, so wetting down the area will help to decrease the number of airborne pathogens. In summary, diseases can be spread between animals and humans through airborne transmission. This type of transmission occurs when aerosolized pathogens are inhaled. Aerosolized diseases include tuberculosis and avian influenza, in addition to Q fever, swine influenza, and psittacosis. To protect yourself and others, it is important to wear the correct PPE and practice good biosecurity. Additional information about prevention and control of airborne disease spread can be found at these sites and the reference text noted in this slide.